Normally what happens is that even if we're doing collaborative work or participatory work, so participatory research, and we invite people in, we start at the level of methodology, right? So we're assuming a certain way of being, we're assuming certain ways of knowing, right? Knowledge exists separate from us. We got to go out and get it and bring it to ourselves. And so we start with this kind of framework of, oh, you ask a research question, and that determines your methodology, and that determines your methods. But those methodologies might be quite exclusive to the people with whom you're doing that research because they may come from different ways of being and ways of knowing. The difficulty, of course, is that it's very difficult for someone from a Western way of being to suddenly create or produce Eastern methodologies, right? Or it's very difficult for a colonial way of being to produce a liberatory or emancipatory methodology. So because that coloniality or the Western centrism is in me, it's very hard for me to come up with some. So when you look at a lot of these inclusive research toolkits, and I don't want to name any because I'm a critical supporter. I support them, but I also want to critique them to make them be better. That oftentimes they look pretty much the same as what we normally do. They might have some activities of reflection, some awareness-based activities that are kind of interspersed throughout. But really what I see on my research and design teams is when people try those, they just are more aware, but then they're stuck. So there's this mythology around, oh, awareness automatically leads to action. But what I've seen is that people become aware, but it doesn't necessarily lead to action. And so the only true way to get, in my opinion, to some type of different kind of liberatory, emancipatory, even a relational methodology is for that to come from people who have a relational or liberatory, emancipatory way of being. It can't come from me. And so that speaks to some of the things that I've been talking to or talking about before when I talk about radical participatory research, that ultimately it's about letting go. If I come into an engagement with a group of people and I say, wait a minute, why don't I not choose the methodology? And if we're really truly co-partners, why don't we let the methodology rise up from the ways of being of the people with whom I am doing this research? Then they have the power to kind of lead it into a different direction, into the pluriverse, the world of many worlds of research, right? There are all kinds of ways to collect and gather, store, analyze, synthesize, transmit, communicate knowledge that go way beyond just interviews or surveys, et cetera, and that use really ways of doing, methodologies that are more in tune with other ways of knowing and ways of being.